What is up, guys? It's Burns, back here again with another Supercoach video. This time I'm just going to go through my trades heading into the week. Just wanted to more or less confirm them with you guys. So what I did end up deciding is we are going to stick strong with Luke, Ryan and Dempsey in. Obviously McKercher was always coming in for Bonner. We've decided to go Sexton out because I think that's the safest route. And then next week we can either move Lazaro or Clark down to Darcy depending on how they perform. Most likely Lazaro, but yeah, obviously can be Clark too. In a worst case scenario, if we have McGuinness also pop off from Collingwood, then we can look at moving both of them potentially, and just using a bit of the DPP flip to move maybe Wilson up. So that's going to be the strategy here. Look, obviously I did actually ask the question to the Supercoach Swordplay podcast. A huge shout out to those guys. And they did honestly have a bit of a laugh at the McGovern pick, and in hindsight, it was one of those things that I think even on the end of my video I talked about I can't pick something so speculative like that, and I'd done my research I think a bit more since that recording, and I kind of had decided against the McGovern pick. Yeah, when they sort of jumped on and they were just like, no, that's not a pick, and I do agree. I had looked at the history and it's just he doesn't play enough games, and I talked about I can't move Hayden Young, a failed premium, to a speculative, pick that may also potentially fail. So I think going with Luke Ryan, it's just sort of certifying that I'm going to get a top 6, and it's improving the team rather than putting the team in maybe a better position. It means that I do miss Powell for Dempsey, but Dempsey will make the same money, if not more, as a rookie. Yes, on-field scoring not as good, but in the best of 18 rounds, it may not matter as much. And we saw in the first round, he did pop out a 90. He does have the ability to hit those ceiling games, so maybe hitting a 90 in a ceiling game, it might even out just as good as what Powell puts out. And if it gets relatively close, as I mentioned, the extra money he'll make will probably make it worth it. Also, with the way these midfielders are playing at the moment, they all look like they're going to be 700k, and we're going to need a lot of money to get to those guys. So it's probably a lot better to bank in some money from these rookies right now than maybe putting a mid price that only gets me 100k. Especially since I already have so many mid prices sort of around the ground as it is. Probably just need to bank in some of these rookies for genuine cash generation. Now, something else I will go through is just using loopholes. That might sound weird to a lot of people as to why I'm going through that, but I've had that asked on my last video and even in the Supercoach Hub Discord. I do think I answered it well enough that people did reply and sounded like they understood, so it was all good there. But I might just run through that because I did forget that early season we do have a lot of new players. They may have played NRL before, which unfortunately you can't loophole with. NBL, same thing, you can't loophole. So it's one of those things that even if they're not new to Supercoach, if they're new to AFL, it could be a new concept to them. But all I'm more or less saying here, guys, is the way loophole works is the way I've got mine set up at the moment. All my players are set up to basically loophole except for the midfield where I don't have a not playing player. But it relies around you having a non-playing player. In this case, in the ruck line, we can see it with Grundy. I put Grundy on the bench, I put the E on him, and he's going to get, since Livingston's not going to play, Grundy's score's always going to count towards my 22. But what this means is if my VC Luke Ryan, who plays on Friday, goes really well, he gets, a 140, and I'm like, yeah, pretty happy with that, I'll take it. Then I can put the C on Livingston, and it will double Ryan's VC score. Now, if he flops and he gets like a 110 and I'm not really happy with that, I can just put the C on English and we get 2 bites of the cherry, which is really nice. And that's how we use a captain loop. But we can also see with pink that we can use just a loophole in general. Also, when I refer to VC and C, it's just vice captain, captain. But yeah, it allows you 2 bites of the cherry for the double points. Now, with the emergency, I've got this set up with Caulfield at the moment, but what I can do is, since North once again are playing the second game, Pink's score is going to come in first of all. So we'll see Pink's score, and depending on what he gets, if he goes ahead and puts out maybe a 40, I might turn around and go, not really good enough. We can just switch Hoare with Caulfield, and then I'm not going to get Pink's score, and I'll get whatever Hoare puts out. And once again, it gets me 2 bites of the cherry of maybe getting a better score than what Pink put out. Now, if Pink comes out and gets like a 67 or something like that, obviously I'm going to take that. So I'm just going to leave the team how it is, and I'll be very happy. Now, same thing with Cadman down here. We've got Lazaro. We'll see his score. If he comes out with, maybe a 70 plus, we're going to probably keep it how it is. But if he comes out with, gets subbed off, gets a 39 or something, I'm just going to move Wilson on field for Cadman since he's not playing, and we will get Wilson's score, who will hopefully outperform what Lazaro did since he didn't put out a great score. Now, sometimes it's a lot easier to, I guess, know what's a good and a bad score, because sometimes the rookie might hit this 50 or 55 and you're like, oh, will the other rookie do better than that? I'm not too sure, and that's when you got to take a little bit of a guess at that stage. In most cases, I'll be pretty happy backing that in. Last week I did back in Pink's 58. I was pretty happy with that over what Caulfield could put out, and then he did get injured with a 3. At the end of the day, though, because it is best of 18, Pink's score did get rotated out of my team nevertheless, so basically redundant. And that's something, I guess, to keep in mind on these best of 18 rounds as well. If you have Pink's score and it's rotated on field currently, but the Melbourne game's about to start and he's maybe your 17th player, and you know that you've still got Butters to come in, Wines to come in, still got English to come, it's going to end up dropping out of the top 18, then you might as well take a punt on a whore and say, hey, you know what, Pink, you got 62 and I thought that was pretty good, but it's not my best 18. So your score is going to be removed and be redundant to me. Or I can take a punt with Hoare, who if he puts out an 80, maybe that's only 3 points better than the guy that is going to finish 18th. But it's still extra points. And if it doesn't outperform it, you don't lose anything. It's basically it's zero risk with potential reward. So just keep that in mind with these best of 18 rounds, that you can use them like that, and it can be a little bit more straightforward than the best 22, where sometimes you take a punt like this and then the guy that you benched for Pink's 58 ends up outperforming that 58. Another thing, I guess that's the same with captains. Sometimes you end up in this awkward position, like say this situation where Luke Ryan gets a 127 and you're like, oh, damn, that's pretty good. Like, my captain may not outperform that. I mean, Butters in week 1 only got a 117. But then English gets a 138, and sometimes you can lose out when you take a punt that way. And I did talk about that in my video. This week I actually VC'd English, and a 138 you're never going to turn down. Usually the bar for captaincies we say is 120. Sometimes on different weeks, and depending on who you have playing which teams, you can raise that bar to maybe a 125 or 130, but probably a 138's too high to give up. Like, literally, I would have to be insane to have punted on Butters. And I had basically English as my VC. Williams didn't play, so I made him the captain, and I got English's double points. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, I missed out on potentially seeing Butters afterwards if English failed, so to a degree, I got less points than what I would have got if I just straight captained Butters. But as I said, it was a safe option. I mean, what happens if Butters comes out and gets a 120? Then I get an advantage on the competition. But that's more or less, I guess, how you use the captaincies, how you use the loopholes. It can be a little bit, daunting at times, because you do need to take a lot of factors into account. I'm actually just going to jump back to last week's matchups. I'm just going to jump to my YouTube League number 1, and we can see that that English's points were doubled as my VC. So the reason those were doubled is because I put the C on Zach Williams, who was a non-playing player. So because the C's on Williams, English got doubled, and you can see that there. Where, yeah, if he failed, I could have put it on a Young or something and maybe found some extra points that way. So, yeah, that's just, I guess, how it will look for you guys, and you can make the call later on. So if you're playing head-to-head leagues or something like that, you put the English VC down. English's VC, you think that's pretty good, but then you look at your head-to-head leagues, and maybe you don't have many unique players playing afterwards. Maybe you've only got Wines and Butters, and you're down by 100 points, and it's like, oh man, like, the English VC isn't really enough. If I leave it how it is, yeah, it's a good VC, but I'm going to lose. And then you could take a punt on a Butters and maybe get a few extra points, and maybe that helps you win a head-to-head. Yeah, once again, a lot of us are playing for overall, so you'll just bank that 138 most times. And I know that can be sometimes a lot to take in with so many varying situations that you can actually use these loopholes. But as I mentioned, it is a little bit easier in the best of 18 because you really just need to look to see, is my player score best of 18 worthy? Yes, leave it how it is. No, maybe take a punt on someone else. You know, that's the way you can look at it to make it a bit easier. But this is how my team will look going in. As I mentioned, I'll have 2 bites of the cherry with Lazaro and Pink, which means even though I have 22 players playing on field, I get the extra look at Pink and Lazaro. It means I more or less get 24, and then we'll shuffle out the bottom scores for the best of 18, and that should help maximize my points. Same with the VCC, wherever it was, we're going to look at putting it on potentially Ryan. Look, it's so rough because I think English is almost guaranteed a 150 in this matchup, and I'd be really upset if the same thing happened that happened last week. Ryan comes out with like maybe a 144, and I'm like, man, I can't not take that as a VC, and then English pumps out a 160, and I just lose out on points. But if I did VC English and he was to fail, I'd have to maybe see a Heaney or a Stewart. I guess that's something that I didn't mention before as well that you need to take into account. When you are doing these loopholes, you need to do it with guys that are playing earlier than your loophole. So, an example like this, say I put a VC on English and a C on Livingston, they play in the same game. So it actually doesn't give me 2 looks because they both get locked at the same time. Lucky for us, we have buy-round players, so we can put the C on a Cadman who doesn't play at all, so we can change that right up until the last game, and it's not going to matter. So just keep that in mind, that the VC or the emergency, they all need to be playing earlier than your player that you're going to loop. It works in this case because I have Pink playing early, and because Hoare and Caulfield don't play until later Saturday night, so a whole day away, I can easily make that change. Even if I don't look at it until Friday midnight, I can still make that change. Sometimes you can get caught out where games are very close together, like this 1 a.m. game into this 4 o'clock game, or the 4:20 into the 7:30 game. Sometimes you can get caught out there because you've put a VC on at 4:20, and then you're doing something and you look at the time and it's 7:30, and your captain's already started playing, but your VC actually got a great score that you would have loved to have taken, but you weren't quick enough to change it and bank those extra points. So you need to keep that in mind. If you're not someone that's actively looking at it all the time, maybe at least put a day between the VC and Cs. So as we mentioned, we've got Pink on the Friday, and then we've got Hoare on the Saturday, so plenty of time to make that decision. Caulfield on the Sunday. Same with Lazaro and Cadman. Wilson and Cadman. Wilson plays on the Saturday, so we'll get Lazaro's score on the Friday. So plenty of time to make that judgment call. Same with Luke Ryan and Tim English. A lot of these times, if you are actively looking at it, you can easily change it before the games start. But if you're not someone that's always doing that, then it might be best to put a day between them so you can look at them late at night when you've kind of forgot about it and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. But yeah, I guess that's just the quick way around VCing and emergency loopholing for those that were interested. Obviously my trades for the week. But yeah, I really appreciate those that stuck around until the end of the video. I really appreciate those that subscribe for their consistent injections of Supercoach content directly into their YouTube feed, and for those that have liked my video. But best of luck this weekend, guys. Let's get it tonight, the Pies. Please, let's get it. But till next weekend, I'll catch you then. Peace, later.